that was around the area too, downtown San Diego.
Correct, yeah. So but buying a condo for that purpose, or buying a condo in general, is a lot different than buying a single-family home or a townhome. A lot of people don't understand how different buying a condo is compared to buying a typical single-family home in terms of the process, in terms of the financing. So I want to touch on the pros and cons of a condo, some things that you may not think about before you buy one that you definitely need to consider. And I think the first thing is you don't own the land. With a condo, you get an undivided interest in the elements, like the gym, the fitness center, the tech area, all of the land is kind of divided up, and you don't own any of your own land underneath the property. It's not fee simple ownership. So you have to participate and cooperate with all the other people in the community to make decisions, which in case kind of brings up the next point. You have a homeowners association or a condo association. Those can be really great, and those can be really, really terrible. So when you're buying in a condo, you are at the mercy of the people making decisions in the condo association in terms of, what kind of amenities to provide, whether or not they shop around for insurance, whether or not they decide to have certain amenities lumped into the fees, and whether or not they do a great job of paying the bills.
Yeah, it's important to be active on the board so that you've got a voice and a say in what goes on in your building.
Right, and so at the same time though, in some instances, the condo association is so large that even one person may not have much of a say or a vote. So you have to go into it with that understanding. When you purchase a condo, you get something that's called the condominium documents in Florida, which is usually hundreds of pages of legalese that very few people actually read, even though the contract stipulates that they need to and they're required to. I'd be willing to bet that a very small percentage of people actually even look at them.
I think we were guilty of that too, and we have rental condos.
We've done the same, yep. So, but nonetheless, they let you know kind of the makeup of the community, the layout, the things that are included, the rules that are in place, the litigation that's happened, the budget. All those things are important because it allows you to understand what's going on in that community. But like I said, you are at the mercy of decisions that they make, which could be different than the decisions that you would make. So if they make a bad decision, you don't have a choice. You still have to pay that fee. You can't say, oh, I'm not paying the fee because I don't agree with you. Or you can, but then they can take your unit back in foreclosure.
I'm often surprised too on homeowners that don't seem to understand the insurance aspect of a condo, because I had a client recently who bought 3 rental condos cash a few years ago, and he assumed that the HOA covered his entire insurance, when in fact the HOA typically will cover the building, but from the walls in, it's your responsibility. Your contents, the drywall, the fixtures, all of that, you should have insurance for.
Right, and so that's something that has to, it's a little bit more complex in terms of analyzing the math for a condo purchase, because, the single family home, you can have some pretty fixed fees, and and then you pay your utility providers. With a condo association, every association is going to be different. Some might include cable, some might include flood insurance, some may not. Some may have a fitness center, some may charge for it. So there's a different set of analysis that needs to be taken into consideration. And like you said, some condos will have building insurance, with great coverage. Some will have building insurance with lackluster coverage. So some pros for condos: decreased maintenance. You don't have as much to maintain. You don't have to maintain the exterior. The HOA has that responsibility as long as they actually execute on that responsibility. Increased amenities: you're going to have a lot more things that you may not have in a single-family home, kind of at your doorstep. You've got a built-in social network. You've got people all around you that you can kind of get to know. I think condos are great for people that are very sociable. They're also great for people new to an area that want to meet people. They can be effective even for, you obviously have a lot of senior citizen 55 plus communities for that purpose, because it has that built-in social aspect. Financing is also a lot more complicated with condos because, with the single family home, you've got a lot of different financing programs that allow you to buy a single family home with lower down payments, as low as 0% down when you're looking at VA loans or USDA loans, and 3% down when you're looking at conventional and FHA. So you can buy a single family home with very little money down. In the condo world, that's rare. Generally speaking, you know, you're not going to see those super low down payments on condos, and you may see condos that can't get financed, and you may see condos that require as much as 20 or 25% down. So, you know, the financing aspect of buying a condo is different because of the risk factor. The homeowners association may not be good stewards of the money. They may not have the right insurance in place is another reason why the condo could be, not be able to be financed.
Right, there seems to be several issues when it comes to financing condos that are completely out of your control. You know,
Right.
like if they have too many investors, we have a condo complex where there's a lawsuit with an insurance company, so they can't get financing in that
Correct.
complex, so there's a lot of issues that could keep you from buying.
Correct, keep you from buying, but also harm your ability to resale, harm your resale value. You've got decisions that they make that could impact your value. And you have a small semblance of that in single-family homes with homeowners associations, but not nearly the same as when you're sharing walls and land with people and giving people that may not have any financial or real estate background the decision to make, the ability to make decisions for the association. So financing can definitely be an obstacle for condos compared to single-family homes. It's rare to find a condo community that checks off all of the boxes that allows for those lower down payment mortgages. Just super, super rare. You know, be wary if there's too many for sale in the building, or if the building allows short-term rentals, because you're going to have a lot of transients. You're going to have people that are partying there for the weekend, not taking care of it. That's another struggle that you can have with condos, is that if the community does allow Airbnb, like the one we stayed at in San Diego when we went to Comic-Con, it could be a situation where you have a lot of people that aren't really residents living there, which leads to maybe it not getting as well taken care of, maybe people not being as respectful towards the grounds because they're about to go home on Monday, maybe people staying up loud and, you know, partying because, you know, they're just there for a few days or for vacation.
Yeah, I remember one time too, we heard about a client had asked to stay overnight in a condo he was buying because he wanted to see what the neighbors sounded like on the weekends. He wanted like a quiet condo community, and he was nervous about buying a condo and having, you know, people who throw parties or were loud on the weekends, so the homeowner agreed to allow him to stay overnight just to check out what the noise level would be.
Yeah, and I think that's a good tip for a home buyer, and I also think it's a good tip for a home seller. Of course, for the home seller, it's a good tip if your community is quiet. Maybe not so much if you have some loud, obnoxious, stomping neighbors living above you. But the other point on that is that, you know, the architectural, the structure, the design, the construction quality can vary from condo to condo. You have a lot of condos that were built as apartments, so typically the construction requirements for condos are a little tighter than it is for apartments. So you have apartments that became condos, and sometimes the construction quality on those isn't as good, where you don't have as much noise proofing that's done. So that's one important consideration as well, is understanding that. A lot of people, I talk about this with commute times, people will go and look at a property at noon on Saturday, and they'll drive from their work, or they'll measure it. At noon on Saturday, there's no traffic. It isn't the same thing as at 8 o'clock on Monday morning. So the same thing goes for noise. If you're going and looking at it Saturday at noon, it may seem perfectly quiet because no one's home. They're all out at the beach or at the pool, or, you know, they've gone to run errands, or they've gone to lunch. So you know, it's a good idea to tour the condo community during some of those evening hours, and then you get a greater take on what it's like when your neighbor gets home from work, when they're cooking dinner, what kind of noise level it is. So,
And I see a lot of the apartment complexes that they're building now are all frame.
Correct.
From second level up, so that impacts your noise a lot too.
Correct. Yeah.
And your
yeah.
insurance.
The construction quality, I think, matters when they're built specifically for condos versus being built, you know, more for apartments. And there have been leaps and bounds advances in frame construction with the insulation and things. So that's not to say that there aren't some well-insulated and quiet buildings that are frame. It's just, you know, more of a norm or an expectation in the real estate community. The block is just, you know, more concrete, the more soundproof, and certainly the better for insurance purposes.
Right.
So again, you're listening to the Duncan Duo Real Estate